NBA trade deadline talk. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Triple Play Basketball Pod, a proud member of Fantasy Points and the Fantasy Point. I got two of the normal guys here. I have the host of the Triple Play Fantasy Basketball Show Waiver Wire, a proud coach, a LeBron stan, a coach who I should mention is leading his team to a winning streak, and soon to be dad, the man that has the longest career in Triple Play Fantasy, Mr. James Lewis. What's going on?
What's up, boys? Yeah, winners of 6 in a row. We got 2 weeks left in the middle school season, and we're trying to go for that first place.
Okay. We on that grind right there. We on that grind right there. In the bottom right-hand corner, the man smiling, wearing a cap, the one that is in way too many fantasy basketball leagues, which means he can't check them all. We got Brad Stradamus, aka Brad Kilgore. What's going on?
Yeah, man, you're lucky I can't check this league because I'd definitely be in first place.
Yeah, that's what you've been saying 2 years. I don't think you've made
Bottom
one roster.
feeders.
Yeah, he hasn't made one roster move in 2 years. Don't let him listen to that. But you'll notice.
But you can still check out all my basketball takes on fantraxhq.com.
Okay. All right. A little plug for Brad, but you'll notice we have a special guest at the bottom of the screen right here, and we got to intro him on the right way. So we welcome in a man who you could say is peachy as he covers the Hawks, the author of Kobe Bryant's sneaker history, a man who is endorsed for leadership, public relations, and social media on LinkedIn, a recent homeowner. This NBA writer is always looking snazzy on and off the court, even if he goes back to school. We welcome in Pat the Rock Benson. What is going on?
Hey, don't stop, man. Keep going.
You're really putting your business out there.
Hey, I appreciate it. No, that's the nicest podcast intro I've ever received, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for making me feel at home.
Oh, of course, man. And, I want you to tell a little bit about yourself to the audience, how you got started, especially, you're doing some great work for SI.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. So basically, not a whole lot you can do with a political science degree. So in my late 20s, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a stab at sports writing. And I went from doing the local high school sports scene to eventually professional sports for Sports Talk ATL. Then eventually Forbes, and wrote the book in the meantime. And then just this past August, SI picked me up to cover the Atlanta Hawks. And it's been a dream, man. First and foremost, I'm a fan. So I often find myself just starstruck when I'm around these players. So really, I'm living the dream, man. I'm happy.
That's awesome to hear. And I did see that you had a selfie with Reggie Miller. That's pretty cool. That's kind of one of those things of like, I know I made it. But being a Hawks fan, I'm sure it's been a little bit of an interesting ride the past couple of years.
Yeah, well, to be total honesty, I'm a Lakers fan.
Okay.
Yeah. But
it's even worse.
I know it's been real rocky the past couple of years, but lots of ups and downs. But it's been an interesting stretch here lately for the Atlanta Hawks. But really, long term, they're really set up in a good position just because they have Trae Young. So as long as Trae Young's on your team, you're going to be competing. So really, no reason to get too down right now if you're a Hawks fan.
That's true. Eastern Conference Finals appearance, can't get too mad off that. And we're probably going to talk a little bit of Hawks today because we're talking NBA trade deadline. No Hawks on there, but hopefully we see some notable names that are getting moved. And fellas, let's just hop into it right away because we're going to talk about a trade that happened. And that's between the Clippers and the Blazers. So in this deal, the Clippers received Norman Powell and Robert Covington. The Blazers received Eric Bledsoe, Justice Winslow, Keon Johnson, and a second-round pick. Now, I think it just needs to go without saying that the Blazers have botched this very well because they turned Gary Trent and 2 firsts into what they just received in the Clippers deal. So, Pat, I want to go to you. What are your thoughts on the trades, I guess winners and losers and what it means for each team?
Yeah, I think it's just a brazen salary dump by the Portland Trailblazers. I think they're trying to avoid the luxury tax at all costs, like they're Donald Trump, man. They're not going to pay that luxury tax. So I think it's unfair to Damian Lillard. to be honest. And, I'll be honest, I didn't expect the Clippers to be buyers at this trade deadline with
Really?
Paul George being injured and Kawhi out for the season. I thought they were probably going to punt on this season, but it looks like they picked up some nice pieces for, I think, a good deal.
I want to touch on that real quick, and then we have a question for you, because I thought that this was kind of a punt it year for the Clippers, like Kawhi Leonard not coming back, like Paul George having that elbow injury. And
what? They're in the playoff hunt.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But I thought prior to the year, because they're both signed for another 3 to 4 seasons, that they would play the long-term game. But co-host of the Waiver Wire show, Jacob Dunn, saying, what are the odds one or both of Atlanta big men get shipped out at the deadline? Great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
I think we should send that to Pat.
Yeah. Oh, that's for Pat.
Oh, yeah. Well, first, let's come back. I want to hear Brad's thoughts on the Clippers trade after. But no, Clint Capella can't be traded right now due to contract stipulation. He can't be moved until the offseason. But at that point, I think Bleacher Report's going to have a field day with all the different trade speculation involving Capella. And John Collins, I think a few weeks ago, it looked like it was a real possibility. He could have been moved as part of the Ben Simmons potential trade. I am cooling off on that now. It seems like those trade talks have kind of fallen apart. Daryl Morey wants to overtly win any trade he's a part of, and I think the Hawks front office is too shrewd to go along with that.
I agree with that.
Yeah. For me, I was really impressed with what the Clippers did. I think Tyronn Lue has rightfully been getting a lot of credit for how he's kept his team afloat without Paul George and without Kawhi, and just having them in the playoff hunt, it lets me know that they have the pieces necessary to win a championship if they really shore up their lineup. And I think they were looking long term by doing this move. You've got a Norman Powell who can get you 20 on the wing literally on any night. He's shooting 45% from the field, 40 from three. He has a legitimate chance to be a 50-40-90 guy in the coming years. And I've never thought that he was capable of that kind of thing up until last year, really. So it's just really impressive what Norman Powell's been able to do and how he's been able to grow. And then they also got a 3-and-D guy in Robert Covington, which they desperately need, a stretch three that can play a little bit in the post and also guard your wings and your fours if, Kawhi and Paul George are going to need to get on the offensive end. So I was just really impressed with what the Clippers did. I think that it was the right move not to punt this year, because if you want to go ahead and make sure that Paul George and Kawhi keep coming back, you're going to have to make sure that they feel comfortable with the team you've assembled. And I think Norman Powell's really going to take some pressure off of them. So I was impressed by this move with the Clippers.
And to build off your point, Brad, the Clippers desperately needed some offense. That's obviously where they've been hurting a lot this season. And two, I appreciate teams staying competitive, even though it may not be their year without Kawhi, but not everything has to be feast or famine. I like seeing teams go out there and compete. So that's refreshing.
Yeah. And they were saying about Ty Lewis, he doesn't like to lose. So that's part of the reason they made this deal. I mean, Brad, I don't think they're going anywhere, Kawhi and Paul George, because they have player options through the 24-25 season where they're both making $48 million. So
true, but they're the kind of guys, they can get that anywhere if they wanted to.
In their mid-30s, I don't know if you're getting $48 million, but James, hop in. Let's hear your thoughts.
Well, you see two teams going two different directions, and Steve Ballmer doesn't mind paying that luxury tax. I like the move. I think that the death lineup that involves Rocco, Leonard, PG-13, Norman Powell, and whoever's playing good that day, whether that's
scary
Morris, whether that's Reggie Jackson, who's had a resurgence of his career. And Norman Powell, he has a 6'11" wingspan. You go Rocco at center. I mean, defensively and offensively, it's going to give troubles for any team in the NBA. So I just like those components. You have Norman Powell for 5 years, and yes, he's become a really damn good guard on both ends, giving you 19 a game, shooting career high from the three-point line at 41%. It's going to mesh well with your stars and Kawhi Leonard and PG-13. So, hopeful that maybe they get off of injuries. But even with just PG-13, we saw that team push through and defeat the Mavericks. So
also a little shout out for Brandon Boston, man. I thought he was going to be a draft and stash guy, but he's really turned in some nice efforts when he's getting those 20 minutes a game.
Well, and about younger players, Keon Johnson was in the deal, so you can see Portland thinking about the future. Yes, they have to pay Anthony Simons, who's just playing out his mind in the offseason. So you could see, benefits for both teams here. And yes, we feel bad for Damian Lillard, but it is what it is.
I was going to say, I don't think I have too much to add. Can we just agree that Portland got in a really bad position and the Clippers just fleeced them?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. It seems like we're all in agreement with this. So we're going to go to the next rumor. And this has been something that's been circulating. And this probably is the biggest names. And James Harden for a potential Ben Simmons swap. Wouldn't that be interesting? Now, numerous sources have come out and said that this is something that has been floated around. Obviously, James Harden a little bit discontent in Brooklyn. Ben Simmons hasn't played this year. There's the Daryl Morey connection. And really, is Brooklyn going to retain James Harden after this season? And what we've seen for some teams, the Raptors a couple of years ago, they went all in with Kawhi for 1 year and they won it. And I think on paper, the Nets probably have the best roster right now when healthy. So, Pat, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Do you think this trade actually happens, or do you think it should happen?
I don't think it happens in the next 4 days, to be honest. Like I mentioned earlier, I think Daryl Morey, I think he's more interested in playing poker than he is in team building. And he just, come on. He could have made a lot of these trades by now, but unless he's just overtly winning the trade, he's not going to make it happen. And I don't think these two teams bridge that gap in the next less than a week.
No, I think that's a good point. Brad, what are your thoughts on this?
So you guys know how I feel about Ben Simmons. You know how highly I regard him, his defensive prowess, and just that he can be so interchangeable and guard every single position on the floor. I think this is going to happen, but probably not until the offseason, as all the reports have been indicating. When you look at Brooklyn, they're 6th in the league in offensive rating, so they don't need any points. They don't need anything from Harden. They'll have enough with KD and Kyrie, but they're 19th in the league in defensive rating. If they can get a Ben Simmons, somebody that can be that interchangeable and guard guards, guard forwards, guard centers, they're probably the best team in the East, and that's over Milwaukee. It's over the Heat. I honestly think Ben Simmons is the perfect piece for them because KD and Kyrie can give them everything they need offensively.
It's interesting, I guess, if Ben Simmons does play this season, we'll see his level of conditioning. I mean, he hasn't played since May, or I want to say actually mid-June. So, I mean, that's 8 months without playing competitive basketball.
They'll ramp him up.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of ramping up, now you have to integrate him for a championship window now. Coach, hop in. Let's hear your thoughts.
I'd like to fit in Brooklyn. 4 years of Ben Simmons, he'd be the perfect piece to play alongside KD. You don't have to worry about having to shoot the ball at the end of the game. Kevin does that. Kyrie does that.
That's right.
And they'll let him go. As we see, Kyrie plays really well off of the ball with James Harden kind of playing a la point guard. I think that it would be a win for Brooklyn, but I don't see Philly just giving him that. And I think they're staying content, and they're going to keep Ben. And Ben has to make the decision, do I come back and see that I actually have a chance to win a championship with Joel Embiid playing better than anybody in the world right now?
Well, I think that answer is already no. But, Coach, what do you think about this question?
I mean, I still think that there's a lot. I mean, there's still time in this season. I mean, you could see the opportunity. I mean, I wouldn't count it completely out. I think that there's marginal hope that we could see Ben Simmons in the court.
Shaq was talking about this on TNT because Shaq was giving Ben Simmons a hard time publicly, and Ben Simmons texted him like, "Hey, ease up. I'm going through some things." I think he needs a different place, just mentally, not only competitively speaking. I think he just doesn't want to be there. He's not comfortable. But I'm curious, what do you think of Christian's question right there?
Okay. All right.
I think this is a real good question right here. That's to you, Coach.
So yeah, this has been thought about in the past. I just don't see Boston doing that. I think they value Brown over Simmons as a guarantee.
Right. I want to leave that for later because one of the targets I think Boston's going to acquire. And before we go to our next thing, Brad, I'm actually with you. I think the most sense makes after the season. It's known that James Harden and Ben Simmons both won out, and you can trade star caliber for star caliber. You don't mess up the dynamic. going on mid-season. And I think Ben Simmons fits in with a lot of teams. I mean, how many players, and not to cast aspersions, but a lot of players in the NBA are ego-driven. They want the statistics. They want to shoot the ball because that's what gets notoriety. And Ben Simmons is one of the few guys that doesn't want to shoot the ball, and he does everything else exceptional. And I think once this season is over, there's going to be more of like, okay, yeah, he's not playing for us. He just missed an entire season. Let's have some suitors. Let's do a sign and trade. And I mean, as Pat said, Daryl Morey wants to play poker. He wants to win these trades. And I don't think he's in a position where he has to necessarily fold the hand he has right now. So,
and Eric, to your point, like they've only played like 7 games together, the big 3 in Brooklyn. Like they don't know, they're 19th defensively right now, but maybe they get some games under their belt that comes up to, top 10. And if they're a top 10 defense, I have no reason to think they won't be title contenders.
And once again, we've got to see what the team looks like postseason when everybody's healthy. But we're going to talk about a team that should make a move, and especially a player that should be gone. And I think this is long overdue. And it's Mr. Bradley Beal, who is eligible for a Supermax this summer. The Wizards started out the season 10-3 and the number 1 seed in the East. And let's just be honest, when you blow a 35-point lead to the Clippers without their 2 biggest stars, if that doesn't make you reevaluate the future, I don't know what does. So, Coach, I'm going to go to you as the Wizards fan. What do you think the Wizards should do? Should they get rid of Bradley Beal, or do you think that he's part of their future?
What I think should happen, what is going to happen, I think Bradley Beal stays and he signs a long-term deal, and then if it's not working out, then he can go to the front office and ask for a trade down the line. I think that he wants the big money, and you're going to get that if you stay in house with Washington when you get that 5-year Supermax. And so I don't see, and I also don't see the front office moving on from Bradley, even though I think that is probably the better move of the two to do right now.
I don't know why it's just so hard for them to admit that they want to do a rebuild. Like that's okay. It's okay to rebuild in the NBA. Like we've seen the Hawks do it when, they had that, the 5 All-Star, the 4 All-Stars of Horford, Millsap, Korver, worst NBA All-Star, by the way, of all time. Sorry to upset you. Damari Carroll and Jeff Teague. And that was a 60-win season. They got swept
Anthony
in the Eastern
Mason was
Conference
pretty
Finals.
bad. I remember Anthony Mason from Miami got on.
That is pretty bad. That is pretty bad. We could do a whole show of that. But, Pat, I'm curious, as somebody that covers a team in the same division, you probably see the Wizards a lot more than people outside of the D.C. area. What do you think they should do?
Well, I saw where Mark Stein reported recently that the Wizards are highly unlikely to deal Bradley Beal before the trade deadline unless he requests a trade. I don't think he's going to make that request. He really seems to enjoy like the speculation and the ongoing attention and the drama. I think he likes to be courted, and I think he likes to be asked about these sort of things. So he's not going to ask for a trade. So I think he's going to be with them through the rest of the season. And like Coach said, Washington makes the most sense for him. I think they're going to gladly open up the checkbook for Bradley Beal.
Oh God. So here's my thing. And Brad, I'll go to you after. They are not going to win with Bradley Beal. Like I love Bradley Beal, but trade him while his value is highest, because once he signs that Supermax contract, if you decide to move him at any point, it's going to be tougher. That's what we saw with John Wall. When somebody's making the bigger bucks, a team is less reluctant to take that on. And Brad, you and I see a lot of eye-to-eye of trading players where their values peak. And Bradley Beal's was probably last season, still some trade value. But what do you think the Wiz should do?
And can you get equal value for Brad Beal?
So Doc, I'm with you 100%. I was kind of out on Brad Beal as a number 1 last year when he was leading the league in usage rate, but it took Russell Westbrook in the second half of the season to really power them over the hump to get them to the playoffs. I just don't think he's a number 1. I think he's too inefficient. Yes, he can go hit incredible shots. Yes, he's a type that can have a 50-point game. Yes, he's a very good 3-point shooter. But in terms of a number 1, in terms of a guy you want to pay $250 million plus, I just don't think he's that guy. I think that, the Wizards drafted him and they really developed him into this top tier caliber player. But you also have to accept that if you can't build a team around that can contend, it's time to move on and get some value for that, because his window is going to close. So I think he's better used somewhere in like a Denver type place, or a Brooklyn type place, or somewhere, a Philly type place, somewhere where they need scoring. I just think that his time in Washington should be done. I think he wants that money and he likes Washington, so he's not, and he wants to be loyal, so he's not saying that. But I'm hoping that they make a move on his behalf because I think it's better for Washington and it's better for him in his career if he goes elsewhere. So that's kind of where I stand.
Around the horn, and I want to start with Pat. If a Wizards-Sixers trade was centered around Bradley Beal and Ben Simmons, and obviously you have salary caps and you have pieces match up, but those are the main two deals, would you do it?
Yes.
Yes.
No. James? No.
I'm sticking with Bradley.
Oh, stop. Your bias is showing.
I'm sorry. I'm sticking with Bradley Beal over Ben Simmons. Okay. I'm not building my franchise around him.
I can respect that.
Okay. I didn't want us to all to agree on that.
Hey, I gave it real thought. I think that Brad brought up a good point about him being that number one in the clutch situations. It's funny that the Wizards are turning to Kuzma and KCP and the ball's in Spencer Dinwiddie.
Exactly.
It's not Bradley Beal closing out these games.
Kuzma's the one that looks like a number one, and it's really shocking to me.
Yeah. Hey, if anything, we got
a rebounding machine.
We got Kuzma for Westbrook. Ooh. Talk about a good job by Tommy Shepard. That's not many things to say about a Wizards GM.
I ate crow with that trade because I wanted to keep Russell Westbrook, but it's looking like he's over the hump, and Kuzma was just underutilized. That was an excellent trade by Tommy Shepard.
Tommy Shepard doing better trades in 1.5 years than Ernie Grunfeld did in 16 years.
If that trade was on the board, I think Morey pulls the trigger for Bradley Beal. I think he's searching for a star. Yes, he wants Harden. He's holding on tight for Ben, but I think as a second option, I think he would say yes to a Brad Beal.
Okay.
I hope so.
All right. Well, go into a guy that's a little bit of a superstar to somebody that has really made his name the last couple of years, and that's Mr. Jeremi Grant, playing for the Detroit Pistons, who seem to be going through a rebuild now. Grant is 27 years old, making $20 million this year and $21 million next year, and then he's set to become an unrestricted free agent. And it's kind of in an interesting place as he signed with the Pistons, a little bit surprising considering where they were. And he's really shown his value as a versatile forward, somebody that can score the ball. Interesting that he is coming off a torn UCL in his thumb, but he's looked pretty good playing right away. And side note, I just love how he has the ninja headband. Swag on 100. Swag on 100 for Jeremi Grant. But
are those still legal?
They aren't, but it's like he has like
he's making it work.
He has the closest it could be without being like the outrageous.
I appreciate that.
But Pat, I want to ask you, because the Pistons have two people that are over 30 or that are 30 on their team, Kelly Olynyk, Corey Joseph. Other than that, everybody is 25 or younger besides Jeremi Grant. Do you think he stays with them as kind of that veteran presence, or do you think they move him while his value is high?
I don't know if his value is ever going to be higher. And I believe it was The Athletic recently that reported that the Sacramento Kings have become the biggest potential trade partner for Jeremi Grant. And also keep an eye on the Utah Jazz as well. I've seen where they've been linked to the Pistons as well in potential trade talks. So I don't know if his stock's ever going to be higher. And I think now would be a smart time for the Pistons to cash in on Grant.
So let me ask you, because I think Utah needs to make an all-in move. I forgot who somebody compared to him, like the Arizona Cardinals of the NFL. Good regular season team, nothing in the postseason. But I feel like the Jazz don't have many assets, like Ingles tore his ACL, and that's an expiring contract. Who do you realistically think the Jazz could give up for Jeremi Grant?
Oh, no, man. I have to break out the trade machine on that one.
Oh, okay. Okay, but you do think the Pistons move him?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Coach, as a Jeremi Grant stan, and I know that you've been on him for a little bit, what do you think his future is looking like?
Yeah, well, he's a local kid over here, DeMatha product. So I've been watching him since his high school days, and he's just really blossomed in the NBA. Hear me out. Maybe this is crazy, maybe not. The guy that got away, Christian Wood, in Houston, I like actually a swap, getting him in return. I think he's a good fit with Cade Cunningham. I like the Lakers to dabble and get into this as well. They give up THT in their first. In return, they get Eric Gordon, and they possibly pick up a veteran like Kelly Olynyk and Corey Joseph. The Lakers have to go all in, and Eric Gordon is a good fit for that team. Jeremi Grant gets the ball in Houston. He loves this role in Detroit, being quasi guy, and the murmurs in Denver, they were going to give him a similar contract, but he wanted to go to a place where the ball would be in his hand, and he would do that in Houston. And clearly, the Christian Wood, Jalen Green, this whole experiment, it's been ugly this season. And I think that this could be an option for them that they kind of get equal asset in return.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a three-way trade I didn't see coming. I mean, to be honest, I don't know if the Lakers, like everybody thought like THT had value, and then he just had awful games. So it's like deteriorating pretty quick. It'll be interesting because I feel like they gave up all of their assets to get Russell Westbrook. They don't have a first-round pick till 2027. And at that point, like, are you
got to
gonna
try
throw a lottery
something? I know I was
protected-
thinking outside the box. I'm a LeBron James fan myself.
Benching
So.
Russ is trying something. But speaking of benching Russ, we'll go to the Russ stand. Brad, where do you think Jeremi Grant's going to go?
Jeremi Grant's really hard for me because I don't value him as highly as a lot of people do. I kind of look at him in the same way as I look at Julius Randle, and that like I think that he had one season where he got the primary usage and he made the most of it. So now you have to pay all-star prices for him, and I don't think he's that caliber of a player. So I look at Jeremi Grant, and I don't want him on a losing team like Houston or Detroit because I want to give those young guys that you drafted as much usage as possible, and I want them to grow. And I don't think he's a missing piece for any contenders, really, because who needs like an undersized 4/5 that can, put up an inefficient 20? So to me, it's just like he's kind of in no man's land. If I could have him cheaper, I'd like him, but you have to pay all-star prices for him. So I'm just not really a fan. So I'm not in on the Jeremi Grant train at all.
Let me put out this thought. Jeremi Grant to the Cleveland Cavs. They got two good big men with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. Jared Allen looking like a steal at 20 mil, and he's signed through the next 4 seasons.
So where are his minutes? You just deflated your argument right there.
Yeah, they have two bigs at the 4 and 5. They have Darius Garland running the point. That's probably their biggest weakness right now is a small forward, especially someone versatile.
I look at him as a 4.
You look at him as a 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
But who do you give up? I mean, I like him going to Cleveland.
I'm thinking. Well, here's the thing: is Cleveland doesn't have to pay anyone for a while, especially if they don't pay Sexton. I'm thinking a Coro and a protected first for Jeremi Grant. I think that makes him a favorite coming out of the East.
That's Doc. That's a fair trade, I think, to be honest. But I just if I viewed him as a 3, I think you definitely pull the trigger on that. I view him as a 4.
Well, here's the thing is the Cavs are kind of doing opposite of small ball where they're doing big ball. People that are tall, athletic, long wingspans. So if you view him as a 4 and they play him at the 3, that kind of fits with like the dynamic.
Eric, you swayed me on this. I really love that actually.
Yeah, that's
Okoro is a young
solid.
talent. Okoro is a young talent. Like Detroit would like that.
Yeah, and that way they're getting a future first as well. And I think for Cleveland, like you're doing better than you thought. You don't have to pay any of these guys for a while. You have Jeremi Grant for under 20 mil or for 20 mil next year. And then after
I really like that.
Him and Kevin Love are off the books. So that frees up 48 mil. So if in 2 years you want to go for a huge superstar, or if you want to lock up your young talent early, you have the ability to do that.
I don't know if that works in the trade machine because they do like I think Jeremi Grant's cap number is pretty large.
They'd have to give up like Rubio, or probably Rubio because his contract's expiring just to match up for
Rubio
this year.
was playing incredible. I don't think they want to give up Rubio.
I know.
Well, I wanted to ask Pat, like, how can Sexton be a trade play in any trade discussions right now because he's injured? I know he's a sign and trade option in the offseason, but is there any movement that he could go right now and somebody tries to sign him in the summer?
I don't know, man. You'd have to ask who's the guy, Duncan or Hollinger?
Duncan, I think.
Yeah. I don't know about that one. I'm not that familiar with what works with CBA and everything else.
Okay, well, that's why we brought you on this pod. We thought you were listening, David Steven.
I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know.
Well, all indications see that Sexton is gonna make a move, and we'll see what type of team is gonna want to get him. I think he's a perfect like 6-man.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. And that's a shame. That's a shame to say, but we're staying with the guard theme. And Coach brought this graphic in here earlier, and the dynamic backcourt of Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum seem to be numbered. I've always thought about the Blazers as the Wizards of the Western Conference. 2 dominant guards just never seem to get over the hump. A lot of other rotating pieces besides that core. And what we've seen is CJ McCollum's name's being floated heavy in rumors. And it seems, especially if they re-sign Simmons, that could be Dame's backcourt of the future. if they decide to run with them too. So, Brad, I want to start with you on this. Do you see CJ getting moved? And if you do, to what team?
I do see him getting moved. I think Anthony Simons coming on really did wonders for that Portland front office. I think they can get rid of a lot of guys who've been kind of lingering in both Dame and CJ. I think CJ is the most likely to move because his number is less and you can ask less for him. I think he'd be perfect in a place like Philly where they could use some scoring on the wings, and they also wouldn't have to give up, their Matisse Thybulle. They could give up like a Shake Milton and some draft picks and, maybe a swap for a Curry. You could do something like that. But I think CJ could go to a lot of places and make a lot of teams better with a lot less in return.
So they probably would have to include either Ben Simmons or Tobias Harris just for contract reasons. CJ McCollum making $30 million this year, 33 next year, and 35 the year after, all fully guaranteed. So that's a big contract. And obviously the talent is there, but you have to have a team that's willing to accept him, not just this year, but as part of their future.
I might be mistaken, but I think Portland can eat some salary.
They can.
Oh, they just opened up a lot with this Norman Powell.
So they don't have to give up a Tobias Harris. I think they can take a CJ.
Okay. All right, Pat, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to go with the Dallas Mavericks on this one. I've seen where both
ding. You got it, Pat.
I've seen where both the Pelicans and the Mavericks are interested in CJ McCollum. And for CJ's sake, I hope he doesn't go to New Orleans. It's just a mess. And Dallas, I'm not sure. Maybe Jalen Brunson, maybe Dorian Finney-Smith, maybe some cap relief. I'm not exactly sure. But, I'd like to see CJ go to Dallas. I think he'd pair nicely with Luka Doncic.
Jalen Brunson's going to get paid.
Well,
he's on the last year of his contract, right?
Yeah.
Well, both of them are, and you can't keep both Dorian Finney-Smith, and I think Dorian Finney-Smith is the better fit in Portland with Lillard. So that's actually what I have.
Coach, did you see Dallas turn down first-round picks for Dorian Finney-Smith?
No, I did not see
outside the lottery though. So I want to ask you guys, and I want to ask Pat first, and James, I'm going to go to you after because you guys both said Dallas. If Portland makes this move, is it strictly salary dump? Because I'm looking at what they could potentially get back. They're not taking on Tim Hardaway's contract. They're probably maybe Dwight Powell is a throw-in, but I really look at the assets of Dorian Finney-Smith, but he's 28 years old. Jalen Brunson, but then you'd have to pay him, and we're already talking about a team that has their backcourt locked up. Reggie Bullock maybe, but he's 30 years old. Like, if you're Dallas and you're doing this, are you trying to get draft picks and the cap relief and just kind of go full rebuild? Pat, I'll go to you first.
Portland?
Yeah, like, do you think that would be their MO if they're trading CJ? Because I think if they trade him to other teams, they can get more talent. But if they trade it to Dallas, it's strictly salary dump and full rebuild purposes.
Yeah, so far they haven't done anything to lead us to believe that they're interested in competing. So, they may be going with a full, complete teardown. And it could eventually include Damian Lillard as well by this summer.
Gotcha. Coach, what do you think?
Well, and Nasir Little has been pretty good in that position, but I think it would be a Dorian Finney-Smith. I think Dallas really likes Jalen Brunson, and it would be a dump. Selfishly, I know I'm kind of going away from the question, but I would just love to see CJ McCollum on the Dallas Mavericks playing with Luka. Because of his size, you can go three guards versatility wise, and his defense actually been improving since he came back from injury. So you got McCollum out there, you got Brunson, you got Luka Doncic, you got high IQ guys, people with clutch factors. You got to try to make some type of move, especially with Tim Hardaway Jr. being out for the season.
No, I certainly agree with that. And we got two players we're going to fly through and a little bit of buy or sell. And first one, I mean, this guy seems like he's on the move. It's Myles Turner. Never really got the fit in Indiana. Reasonable contract, making 18 mil. Somebody that plays really good defense. And I want to start off, I think Boston's a good fit for him. I think put him at the 5, Robert Williams at the 4. You can keep Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I think you'd probably have to give up Marcus Smart, maybe a future first round. But Indiana seems keen on rebuilding. And I think if they can get one player and a pick, it's worth it. And then for Boston, you don't have to give up that young core. I think you can add a good complement piece. But Pat, I want to start with you. Where do you think Myles Turner makes a good fit?
Yeah, so while I was doing my research for this question, I saw where the Raptors, Spurs, Trailblazers, and Nets have all been reported as potential trade partners. So that might make Turner the most highly coveted player at the deadline. I'd like to see him. I think it'd be cool to see him play with the Nets, but I don't see how that works with their salary cap. And then if not, maybe the San Antonio Spurs could be a dark horse for delaying Myles Turner.
They do like their big men there. It always seems like they have a 4 or 5 that they like to build around.
That's
Brad,
right.
where do you think Myles Turner fits best?
He hasn't been rumored, but I'd love to see him on the Lakers because AD doesn't want to play the 5. LeBron didn't look great at the 5, and he always faded back to playing point guard anyway. I think seeing those guys in more natural positions would really open up a lot of things. It would make Russ better as well. I honestly think they need a true 5 because Howard and DeAndre Jordan aren't really cutting it. So I'd definitely go with Myles Turner at the 5 if they can make it happen.
Okay, Coach, where are you thinking?
I think at this point, Pat makes a great point that he might be the most coveted player, and it's going to be who gives him the best deal. He mentioned the teams. I also heard that the Hornets were interested as well. So what is the best package that we can get in return? He is a good fit for so many teams because of his defensive versatility and his ability to hit the 3, much more than Sabonis, who is obviously the better player. It's harder to have him fit in on a lot of teams because of his needing to have the ball in his hands all the time and not as potent defensively. But my team that I see is Toronto. Toronto is length, versatility at your finest. You got to line up with Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam, Van Vliet, All-Star. It's just I would love to see that visually and defensively, the capabilities that you do that. You give up a first, you give up Ochoa, you give up Dragic to fit the contract. You
give up OG?
No, you keep him. You keep him. He is off limits for any trade talk. If you ask me, if anything, maybe Gary Trent Jr. could be on the board. But
I mean that's probably the highest sell high of anybody that right now. Like Gary Trent can't keep up this pace. Value will probably never be high.
And Pacers you swallow up all the picks that you can get. You get a first round, you get a couple 2s. You get
Gary Trent's been really consistent.
What's that?
Gary Trent's been really consistent. Like,
he's
Toronto's
been lately, yeah.
Toronto's been like growing their guards. We were talking about Norman Powell, OG, Gary Trent. Like they just developed their guards really, really well.
I just want to say I don't think anybody banks in more 3s in the NBA than Myles Turner.
Yeah,
like it's so random, but like once or twice a game he shoots a 3, and at least one of those is hard off the glass and in.
I'll co-sign that one.
And also shout out Fred Van Vliet, a guy that's undrafted and completely deserved this all-star trip. Look at his efficiency numbers. It's off of the charts.
And he's shooting like 15 threes a game now, which is absurd.
I love it.
He's amazing.
I love it. He got the 3 and D, but we're going to our last player here. It's a guard themed show, it seems like. And we're going with Mr. De'Aaron Fox, signed the Supermax with the Kings a couple of years ago, but in surprising for maybe most teams, maybe not for the Kings, just making puzzling moves by drafting Tyrese Halliburton, Davion Mitchell back-to-back years. Keep in mind, Buddy Hield is also signed to a big extension. So plethora of guards, and Fox seems to be hopefully on the move for his sake. Pat, where do you think makes a good fit for him?
I don't know what makes the best fit for him, but I saw where recently Brian Windhorst of ESPN reported a potential swap between the Knicks, Julius Randle, sending him to Sacramento for De'Aaron Fox. I don't know why the Knicks would. I know things aren't going great right now with the Knicks, but I mean, if I'm Sacramento, I don't let them get off the phone. I would, shake their hand immediately. That'd be too good of a move for the Sacramento Kings. So I don't know how much to put into that report, but that would be ideal if you're Sacramento.
So I had the Knicks also. I think the Knicks need a star point guard, and they've tried with star point guards past their prime with Derrick Rose and Kemba Walker.
Yeah.
Would you do this trade? So I think you got – I don't know if you can include Randall because I think him and Fox have to be the core. But like Obi Toppin, Mitchell Robinson, and Kemba Walker for salary cap matching purposes for De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, if I'm the Knicks, but I don't know why I would do that if I'm Sacramento.
Well, I mean, where are there good young big men? Like I'm blanking on his name. Chimezi, like he has some talent, but like Mitchell Robin is a solid defensive anchor, and Obi Toppin is probably good young talent. Like I feel like everybody, the elephant in the room is that the Kings have a lot of guards, and you're having a team then because
So do the Knicks.
De'Aaron Fox is set to make a lot of money. I'm going to pull it up right now, his contract. And while I do, Brad, hop in and give your thoughts.
I'm not sure what the Knicks are ever doing. I honestly don't know what's going. I think they have enough guards. I think RJ Barrett has been playing incredibly. I think they should just let RJ Barrett run point, let him grow. And honestly, I think Sacramento should stay put and keep De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox has gotten better every single year of his career. Tyrese Halliburton works well beside him. Davion Mitchell has come on incredibly as a three-point shooting scorer. Is also distributing. I see no reason that he can't. And also defensively as well. He's been a lockdown defender on the wings. I see no reason why the three of them can't coexist. If they want to bring Davion Mitchell as a sixth man off the bench, they can. If they want to have a three-guard lineup, they can. I just think it's fine. They don't need to make a move. For once, Sacramento is actually building something, and I think they should stay put with Fox.
So De'Aaron Fox has 4-year, $135 million left on his contract after this year. So what's in it for the Kings is to get out of that contract if you don't think you're in contention. And Brad,
that's what Julius is making.
I will disagree with you. The Kings are 20-35. They're third to
but
last
they're building,
in the Western Conference.
I'm not saying they're good. I'm saying they're building something.
The Kings have been building something since 2010. That's the last time they made the playoffs.
No, they haven't.
It's the last
they've
time
just been getting people. They haven't been building anything. Right, now they've built something.
So the Kings have De'Aaron Fox and Buddy Hield making a lot of money under contract. Same with Rashawn Holmes. Same with Harrison Barnes. They are spending a lot of money and they don't have the results to show. But that's just my take. Coach, what are you thinking?
I'm actually on the opinion that they should make this trade. I think that New York would actually get the better player, in my opinion. We saw Julius come up very small in the playoffs. We don't know what De'Aaron Fox looks like in the playoffs. We know that New York really needs a point guard. I think you throw in Bagley. You got Bagley. You go Fox, and you make that move in New York and Sacramento. They obviously need help in bigs, and you could see him in a new home. And I mean, it would be such a Sacramento move that they stay a middler or a bottom feeder, however you want to put it. But the contracts match, and I'm excited. I would like to see that happen. I want to see Marvin Bagley in a new place as well. And you know that they just keep grabbing more and more Duke players. And I know RJ Barrett has point guard capabilities, but we've seen that he can play off the ball as well with his 3-point percentage going up, and he had 36 yesterday against the Lakers. Looked really good. And you get younger, you get faster, and you have the swipe of Fox running the show. So I see Julius Randle for De'Aaron Fox. I actually like it for both teams.
I mean, I do too. And if the Knicks can offload Fox's contract, I think it'd be interesting to see him play together. The Knicks just seem to go with all lefties.
Offload Fox's contract for Julius Randle? Like, how does that make the Kings better?
I think it's going from a position
because you get a big now, and you just have the conveniency of having all those guards like Davion Mitchell, like Buddy Hield, like Tyrese Halliburton. You just have a plethora of guards where Halliburton is just coming into his own. And
I see the vision.
Give him some more usage. See the pairing between him and Randle. Give it a look.
And let's not forget that Randle was just the most improved player last season.
Yeah. And what we see is interesting sometimes, and not just in basketball, but team building goes to ownership. And, you have the James Dolans and for Kings Vivek, like it's very tough to build a team when you don't have someone competent running the front office. And, not obviously none of us know him on a personal level, but the results speak for themselves. And when you haven't made the playoffs in 11 going on 12 years, it's just, you can only have so many coaches, so many players before things don't really seem to mesh.
It's basketball. Like things can change in a snap. We're looking at the Bengals who are going to the Super Bowl this year because they got two players. Like things can change very quickly.
Yeah, but basketball is a little bit different in a best of 7 and 82 game season.
They just have to get there.
All right. Well, getting there is going to the playoffs first. So let's do baby steps here. But we're going to go to buy or sell now, kind of from a team perspective. And Coach, I love you using this graphic, getting the stocks involved. So we got 4 teams here, and I kind of want to just go around the horn in 30 seconds or less, whether you think this team is in buying or selling contention. And first is the Atlanta Hawks, Pat's baby, hometown. They're underperforming a little bit this year. 25 and 27, obviously not what people thought coming off Eastern Conference Finals appearances. Pat, what do you think? Buy or sell?
Buy, but I don't think they're going to break the bank either, just because right now they don't have much cap flexibility moving forward. They invested heavily in their young core during the off season, and unless they seriously break that up, they don't have much room to make many major additions. So I think buy, but on a budget.
Okay, buy on a budget. And the reason I asked this is getting rid of Cam Reddish kind of seemed like a sell move. Like I understand you don't want to pay him, but it just seemed like you gave up the best player in that deal. James, if you're the Hawks, you buying and flying, or you selling?
Also, I don't think Reddish has fared well so far in his NBA career. He's been one of the most inefficient players in the NBA since he's gotten here. With his usage, his percentage is just he's definitely a talent. But I'm not mad at Atlanta keeping DeAndre Hunter and Herter, who fit better with Trae Young. I think they're going to try to offload Gallo or Bogdanovic. They're not great fits, and you could see maybe somebody in contention trying to make a move for them. Maybe it's Utah, as we mentioned before. Maybe Gallo kind of fits in that Joey Ingles role, and maybe you can squeeze something out of them. So that's my take as far as Atlanta's concerned.
That's a great point, Coach. Just because Gallo's got the most trade-friendly contract that there is right now at the deadline, so I'd be shocked if he hasn't moved in the next few days. That's a great point.
And he has moments like he could win you a playoff game. Hypothetically,
he has moments which got him a $63 million contract. Remember when that happened? I was like, "Gosh, this is awful."
Yeah, every time you're gonna say Gallo sucks, he'll drop 20. Yeah. He has his days.
I hate big men that have foot issues, and he had that before the contract. Brad, Hawks, buy, sell.
Yeah, I don't believe in the baseball mentality of like every time you have a bad season, you tear the whole thing down. I think the Hawks should be buyers. I think they're closer to the team they are last year than the team they currently are this year. The problem with the Hawks is I think they're great on paper. Like I don't even necessarily know what they need. I think Trae is excellent. I love Bogdanovic as your leading scorer off the bench. I love Herter. I love Collins. I love Capella as well. Like they got some nice twin towers.
Having
there.
Hunter healthy helps a lot.
Hunter is incredible. Like as a 3-and-D player, I really like what the Hawks have. They should definitely be buyers, but I think, like everybody mentioned, they should just pivot off of Gallo to get something that can complement them. Okay. There's not something big. Yeah, they should buy on a budget, like Pat said.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was going also. I don't think you can have the level of success you had last season and say, yeah, we're selling. But I think a shakeup is needed and kind of in that buy sense. We're going to go to a team in the same division, and that's the Charlotte Hornets, 28 and 26 this year, currently 9th in the East. And I mean, this team has shown some potential. And look, I'm wrong about LaMelo Ball, okay? You see this, I'm going to eat my words on that because I thought he was a glorified Austin Rivers. So I'm taking the L. I'm taking the L on this one, okay?
In fairness to Eric, that was before the draft. That was just what he was projecting.
It was before the draft. But, I mean, we look – and the Hornets have some big contracts on the books. Gordon Hayward making $61 million the next 2 seasons. Terry Rozier is under contract till 25-26. But other than that, besides Kelly Oubre making $12 million this and next year, they're not really in a position that they're spending, but they're kind of in that middle of the 500-ish. Pat, what do you think? Should they buy or sell?
I think neither. I think they're ahead of schedule on their rebuild. I think they've got a nice mix of young talent and veteran leadership. I really don't anticipate the Hornets shaking things up at the trade deadline.
Okay. All right, Brad, what about you?
I think the Hornets are a lot better than they thought they would be at this point. So their team doesn't really have shape. They have a lot of duplicative players like Gordon Hayward and Kelly Oubre and Terry Rozier all kind of do similar things. And I think the Hornets need to have more of a shape to their team, as in they should build around LaMelo. They need to build around Bridges. They need to get a center that they can count on long term. And then from there, kind of build out the wings. So I think they should probably stay put right now. They shouldn't be buyers or sellers. I don't think they're close to being, a deep playoff contending team, but it's clear that they are close to being a playoff team. So I think they should probably stay put and let things play out.
All right, Coach, what about you?
I think both of you make great points. And with that depth, they have the flexibility to make some moves, honestly. PJ Washington, if they can find him a home, maybe get some type of future asset for him, maybe somebody likes him, and Actually, Gordon Hayward is actually expendable. And I know that there were talks about him signing with Indiana before the whole Charlotte thing happened. And maybe you pull the trigger on Myles Turner for Gordon Hayward. It wouldn't be the worst thing for either team.
I think if you can find someone to take the contract of Gordon Hayward or Rozier, that you do it. I mean, Gordon Hayward, 31, and he's a talented player, but I don't think he's going to be a building block, especially worth $30 million a year. And Rozier, I think it was one of the splashy signings that MJ did, and I think after losing Kemba, like you needed to replace him with a star potential caliber guard, and they kind of took the chance because Rozier didn't have that playing time with the Celtics, and it's like, well, maybe this is the next best thing. Let's take a gamble on him. I like what the Hornets are doing, but like you said, build around LaMelo. I think if you can get some value for Rozier or Hayward now, you do it to kind of punt the next couple of years. And then when you have that cap room, you sign a couple big free agents to pair with LaMelo. And
well, we all know that they have to pay Miles Bridges.
Who knew Miles Bridges was going to be this, man?
Oh my God!
Who knew?
He bet on himself. He's due for a huge payday.
They do have, but that's the thing. Maybe MJ doesn't pay him. Like it's not the craziest thing in the world.
You can't break up the LaMelo Ball Bridges show.
I'll tell you what. To Doc's point, like if I can go get a lottery pick for Miles Bridges, which you might be able to, I might think about it.
Get rid of Gordon. See how much value you can get for Hayward.
I agree.
Right.
I agree.
We got a couple teams left. We're going with the Celtics, so we're just sticking in the East for this main part of the segment. It seems like it's kind of being make or break for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They have really thrown Marcus Smart out there. It seems like they're really trying to get him off the books and maybe to include a package. And it's interesting. The Celtics seemed like they were going to be contenders for a while. And then Danny Ainge steps down. I think everybody caught on to what he was doing and just him fleecing people. Brad Stevens going from head coach to front office. Ime Udoka. It seems like the Celtics kind of had a short peak. And I don't necessarily think that they're buyers now. But, Pat, I'm interested to hear your thoughts in the direction that they go.
I agree. I think the Celtics are technically sellers this time around. They're obviously trying to get rid of Marcus Smart. Dennis Schroeder's in a one-year contract. They might try to move off him as well. So I think technically they're sellers.
I agree with, and let me ask, like, let's say they don't make a huge move, or they make a minor move. They get bounced in the first or second round this year. Do you think Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown's traded in the offseason?
I think Jason Tatum means far more to the organization than Jaylen Brown. So I guess Brown would be the first to go. I think they're going to do what they've got to do to keep Tatum happy. They don't want him leaving at any point.
Gotcha. James, what do you think?
You keep your star wings and you shake everything up. Whatever they have right now, it's not working. You get rid of Horford, Smart, Josh Richardson, Schroeder. Just make anything happen, because Brad Stevens, first year as GM, all these moves that he's made has not worked out. Horford, Schroeder, like, shake it up, shuffle the deck, see what it looks like with different players. And I'm telling anything, honestly, but you keep those two young guys by any means, because Tatum, I agree with Pat, he's not going anywhere, and don't give up on Jaylen Brown because he's still 25 a game as well.
So it's going to be interesting to see Al Horford making $26.5 million next season. If they don't trade Marcus Smart, he's under contract till 25-26, and he's making $16 million next year. Josh Richardson making $12 million next year. They signed Robert Smith too, albeit a team-friendly deal, but he's making between $10 to $13 million. So they're really hamstrung with the salary cap, not to mention Jaylen Brown is going to make $26 million, and Jason Tatum is making $30 million next year. So there's very little flexibility they have in terms of signing players. It's really, can you get pieces for the Marcus Smarts, for the Josh Richardsons, and people taking those contracts? Brad, I want to hop to you.
I think it's time to blow it up. It's not working. I think the only two pieces that are untouchable in a blow it up scenario are Jason Tatum and Robert Williams. I think it's not giving up on Jaylen Brown. It's just recognizing that the two don't work well together. They're very ball dominant, and when they're both on the court, the offense is, if Jason Tatum has the ball, he's going to shoot it. If Jaylen Brown has the ball, he's going to shoot it. And that's what it is. Marcus Smart came out and they had a players-only meeting talking about that fact. It's just not going to work between the two of them, even though both of them are still good, still very good, and getting better each year. I think you can get a lot for Jaylen Brown, so he's worth being a very notable trade chip. I think that Robert Williams has shown that he can be a cornerstone. So I think Robert Williams and Jason Tatum should be the only untouchables on the roster, but they need to recognize that the way that this team is built right now is not a contender.
To the Brown and Tatum point, I mean, let's not forget about just a couple years ago, this team was up 3-2 in the Eastern Conference Finals, and
So that's how much
changed a mere performances to get in.
That's how much things
have changed.
In sports,
yeah, but those two players were still the main, the main guys on the team.
And now
it can be done. It's not like this is an impossible fit, and they're still, 26 under. Like
how I knew it wasn't going to work. Remember the first game of the season, the Celtics and the Knicks played, and it went to like that double OT game. It was literally iso ball. It's Jaylen Brown's on fire. It's Jaylen Brown's on fire, but Jason Tatum hasn't shot yet. Tatum, I shot 3 of 15 from 3 that game. So it's
they don't run an offense.
It's just Brown, Tatum. Brown, Marcus Smart, Dennis Schroeder, back to Tatum, Brown. There's like 2 passes on offense and a lot of iso ball.
It's like they have 2 James Hardens. Like it won't work.
They don't play their young players either. They play these veterans too much time, and we don't even know how good Pritchard is and some of these other players because they don't get the opportunity.
So last team we got here is the New Orleans Pelicans. I brought them out. Special shout out to Antonio Daniels coming on the pod. And look, the Pelicans have shown some sign of life. They started out the season 1-10, and now they're 20-32. Now, I'm not saying by any means that that's going to set the world on fire, but they've shown some promise. And he said, watching this team, it's special. And look, they've locked in a lot of money in players. Brandon Ingram, Jonas Valanciunas, Devontae Graham. Josh Hart. They're going to have to pay Jackson Hayes, who has been coming on. So, Pat, the Pelicans are just in an interesting situation. What do you think they do?
I'm going to go with buyers because they have nowhere to go but up. I think David Griffin should be arrested for what he's done to that organization in just 4 years. The man's a war criminal, and I think they've got nowhere to go but up. I think they've got to do something because it'll be interesting really to see what ends up happening with Zion, to be honest. And I think they got to take into account how he feels about everything. He could be the first ever player to turn down, to not only not play and get offered a max, but then turn it down. So.
APB out for David Griffin's arrest. I like it. I'm kind of with you. I like for them to be buyers because I don't think that you can sell everything you have. Like, Valanciunas is on a good contract, but I don't think anybody takes Josh Hart. I don't think anybody takes Devontae Graham.
Whoa.
I think you sell Zion Williamson and you build with the team you have. Get some trade value. Don't worry about paying Zion the Supermax. Get a couple role players, have a team like maybe Miami or like the Knicks, somebody that wants a star appeal player, and it's a win-win. It's kind of punting on the number 1 pick and a glorified player, but it's getting some value before you get none. Brad, you said, whoa. Explain that whoa.
Well, Josh Hart, I think he could be an incredible piece for a contender. He's just a great defender, and he can go get very efficient points. And he's been a lot in a lot of rumors lately in the trade mill. So I was surprised that he said that nobody would want Josh Hart. I agree with the Devontae Graham take. I think his stock is definitely going down, despite my love for him. But I'm closer to Pat. Like I think they should be doing a little bit of both. I think they should be buying and selling. They should be selling the Josh Harts. They should be trying to get rid of the Devontae Grahams if they can. But they also need to build something around Zion and Brandon Ingram because you have to at least show Zion that you're trying to build something. You have to give him a reason to make him want to sign up again. And they need to see if it's worth signing Zion up again because, if his weight is going to be an issue for the rest of his career, it might not be. It might not be worth, injury troubles or whatever is going to come with his weight issues. So the Pelicans are in a really tough spot. I don't really know what they should do, but they should get value wherever they can and also build around Ingram and Zion.
Okay. All right, Coach.
I don't see much value that they can get from players that I see that are like not on the board. I don't give up on Valanciunas without even giving them a look of one game together. Point Zion is a thing. You get Zion, you got JV. BI has had an all-star caliber season. He's been more efficient, better on defense. And speaking of defense, you have a just an awesome rookie in Herb Jones, and he is here to stay. He's going to be a glue guy for 10, 12 years. I love what I see from Herb Jones.
Oh gosh.
And
he's got the Ben Simmons.
I love that guy. Love that stock master.
He's a stock king.
We're talking about gosh, he's like Tesla a couple months ago. He just keeps going up and up and up and up and up.
Well, and you thought Trey Murphy the third was going to be that guy as he was drafted early in the first round, but it ends up being Herb Jones, and you have Josh Hart. We talked about his his rebound prowess and just his overall savvy that he brings to the game. You want to give that a look, but I don't see you're not going to get any value for Devontae Graham, who shoots 37% from the field.
But you can get value for Hart, you can get value for Valanciunas. But I hear you.
Yeah, I don't get rid of him unless it's something crazy in return. I just don't.
So you're staying put.
I'm trying to unload anything I got on the bench or any of those young guys, but the four guys that I mentioned are, to me, I want to at least see them with Zion.
That's reasonable. I like that take.
Okay. I mean, JV has been just one of the best post players in the entire league.
He's always been that. Like, he's consistent. Like, he's always been just a very dependable player.
It's interesting. Trade deadline's coming up in the next week, and like, which we're all saying the Pelicans should be buyers, and maybe they're just sellers. They have a firestorm, and that's kind of where Pat's connected better than any of us, so I'm sure what he hears is more closer to what might happen, but you never know. I mean, there's the big thing we talk about in sports is its connections, and teams that do business with each other or owners that like each other are probably more likely to make a deal done. We're going to go to the last segment right here, just kind of around the horn. A player that hasn't been in the news that you think is going to get traded. And Pat, I want to start with you to finish this out.
Let's go with Serge Ibaka. I'm still shocked that the Clippers are buying at this point. I think he's got plenty of gas left in the tank. I think his stock is high, but he still is going to be expensive moving forward with the Clippers. Again, I'm still shocked that the Clippers are trying to make a move this season. So I think he's a dark horse candidate to be traded.
Okay. All right, Brad.
I'm going to go with Victor Oladipo.
Okay.
I think Miami is really close to building something, but I think they need a little bit extra. They've had a lot of chemistry issues with guys being out from COVID and guys getting injured, and it's not been great. But Victor Oladipo is somebody who, re-signed on a very cheap deal. And he's also got a lot to offer. I think he wants to prove that he's still an all-star caliber player, and I'm not sure he's going to get that usage on Miami when he does come back. I think he's going to be my dark horse for a trade candidate.
Okay. Coach, let's hear yours.
I don't think Vic has any trade value right now. What can you get for him? He hasn't played.
But he's cheap.
Yeah, he's cheap.
That contract ain't cheap.
I don't know what.
No, it is.
But I actually love what Miami.
All right, let's look up Victor Oladipo's contract right now.
I love what Miami's done with just replacement, with everybody stepping in when people have been out. It's just been awesome. Been next man up, and then you weren't Yurt7 was leading the league in rebounds in the time that he was starting, and then as soon as Bam came back, he was on the shelf. So Vincent has been great. Strus has even had a better season than Duncan Robinson. I love Miami, but to go back
hold up, Coach. I want to interrupt 1 second. Doc, he signed for 1 year, $2.4 million.
I did see that. I was going to bring it up. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. It's fair.
Go ahead, Coach.
To Pat's point on Ibaka, I could see possibly Kennard or Coffee be on the move now that you got Rocco. Now that you got Norman Powell, I know Kennard is on a bad contract, but you never know who's going to say yes. Or I mean, he's still having an all-right season, and the Cavs need to make a push. I know this wasn't on buy or sell, but Cavs need to buy. I would be looking at Karis LeVert, even if Kennard would
Jeremi Grant, or I like Karis LeVert.
Yeah, so because of Darius Garland's just unbelievable playmaking, you can fit a lot of different guards around him. So for me, the Cavs, because of their just unbelievable season that they're having, they got to buy in and find another piece, somebody else that can give you minutes in the playoffs. So I'd look at a LeVert or Kennard or somebody on the wing that can help contribute.
All right, so for mine, I got to pull up this graphic because Thaddeus Young is in rare talent. players with 800 games to average 13.5 points, 5.9 rebounds, 1.4 steals,
what a
shooting
weird
49% from the field and 30% from 3-point. So we saw two present or future Lakers. Thad Young goes to the Lakers. He's kind of a tweener. He's making $13 million this season. The Spurs aren't even playing him. I think it's just kind of like a salary dump switch. They include, DeAndre Jordan, Kendrick Nunn, Kent Bazemore. People are on one-year deals, and you throw in a second-round deal just so the Spurs get a little sweet out of it. I think that's realistic. Like, Lakers don't have many assets. They have the 2027 first. They have Malik Monk, who I don't think they trade, and they have Talen Horton-Tucker. I think Thad Young is the best player they can get without giving up too much for it. And just honorable mention to Thad Young getting the final bucket of a game last year when I bet his over-under, the under, with 1 second shoots up a meaningless hook that goes around the rim and in. Thank you for losing me $20, Thad Young.
I'd like to see him go back to Chicago because of the injury. I think he would be a really good fit. The Chicago could really use him right now with Pat Williams going down.
Yeah,
I don't know what they can give up, but
I think he's got to be on the move, though. I mean, the Spurs are rebuilding, and the Spurs are exciting, but Thad Young just doesn't fit, and he's a good tweener. He's 33 years old. I think he has a little bit more time left.
He definitely should get traded. We need to, the fantasy owners out there need to see him get traded.
They do. That small forward, power forward eligibility. But really want to appreciate Pat for coming on and the two fellas as well for talking some NBA trade talk. But Pat, before we get out of here, and I want you to tell the audience where they can find you on the socials, some of the great work that you're doing. The floor is yours, my man.
First, I just want to say that Thaddeus Young graphic was nasty. You put that together.
One more time for it.
13.6 rebounds.
Elite company with
foul.
Magic, Bird, MJ, LeBron, and Thaddeus Young.
Most hand-picked stats I've ever seen.
I was going to say, I like to cherry pick stats more than just about anybody, but that makes me feel like I need to step my game up. Like my takes need to be as asinine as that one was. I got to do better. I got to go back. I got to go back to the gym and work on my game.
When people use things like, "Oh, I'm going to tell my grandkids this was so and so player." Thaddeus Young's going to be like, "Yeah, I'm going to tell my grandkids I was in the same stratosphere as LeBron, MJ, Bird, and Magic."
That was crazy, man. But yeah, so anyway, thank you so much for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I really appreciate y'all having me. And you can just follow me. I didn't get the memo that we're putting our Twitter handle down at the bottom. So just follow me at Pat Benson Jr. on Twitter. And check out Sports Illustrated's Atlanta Hawks coverage. And again, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and I mean, he's doing great work on there. First of all, he's verified, so the stuff on there is real. I mean, you can never go wrong following someone that loves the game first and then does this for their business second. And not just Hawks coverage, but I mean, this guy's covering the NBA year-round. Some great tweets on there. And like I said, please give him a follow. Give him a follow on his Instagram as well. Post some really cool stuff on there. But for everybody that does consume Triple Play, whether it be via YouTube, the podcast, we appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you check out some of the future stuff we got going on and buckle up because it's going to be a wild trade deadline. We'll catch you guys on the next one.